Well, good morning. First, I want to start off with another big thank you to our BC teachers, proud BCTF members, for your historic and decisive vote this week on escalation. Your dedication and commitment to our students is what we are all about. And I want to thank you. You're amazing. More teachers than ever voted. 86% voted yes. And yesterday, rotating strikes continued. Reports came in from all across this province about the enthusiastic support from parents and others in the community. On my way here today, I had honks and waves of support. Our teachers are deeply committed to achieving a fair deal for our teachers and for our students, and they are incredibly passionate about getting the improvements that our students need for their learning. We want to make our BC education system better, and that is the heart of our actions. We don't go on strike just to walk a picket line. We go on strike to improve the working lives of teachers and our students' learning conditions. This week's vote showed how deep that commitment is. Because after 12 long years of cuts, illegal legislation, and the loss of 3,500 teaching positions, it's time for change. It's time to reinvest into BC students, into our public education system, so we're no longer the second worst in funding across Canada. Teachers are doing their utmost in an underfunded and under-resourced system, but students are not getting the support or one-on-one time they need. Our kids deserve so much better. And that's why we made the decision yesterday, after much discussion, to serve notice that our BC teachers are prepared to escalate job action to a full withdrawal of services on Tuesday, June 17th. Let me be clear. BC teachers, our members, want a fair deal, and we hope that escalation can actually be avoided. There are still several days left during which both sides can hunker down, reach a settlement, avoid a full-scale strike, and end the government lockout. We're ready to move. And my message to Christy Clark is come to the table with new funding, an open mind, and the flexibility needed to reach a fair settlement that will support teachers and our students. In addition to potential escalation on June 17th, we have also provided the employer with notice that we will continue our Stage 2 job action on Monday, June 16th. Our teachers, province-wide, will participate in a study session. That means teachers will gather together off the school work site. Schools will not be picketed, and teachers will not be at their work sites. For the balance of this week, rotating strikes will continue today and tomorrow according to the schedule that was announced earlier. And during the next 2 days, it's also important to remember that teachers remain locked out during recess, lunch, 45 minutes before and after school. The government's lockout prevents teachers from doing their regular work during lockout hours. Despite deciding to escalate, I want parents, teachers, and students to know that I am hopeful. We are going to work as hard as we can and make the moves that we need to get a fair deal. To get that deal and to avert a full-scale strike, BC teachers are looking for improvements to class size, class composition, and staffing levels for specialist teachers so we can increase that so important one-on-one time for all of our students. In addition to improvements to students' learning conditions, a fair deal must also include a fair wage increase for our teachers. If government brings the necessary funding to the table, the political will, some flexibility, and good faith, we can get this settled. That's what we want. That's what we're going to be working for. Let's do it. Thank you very much.
Jim, I just got a note from...
How do you respond to criticisms of this study session on Monday? It's just a sneaky way of getting around issuing 72-hour strike notice and going out earlier than that?
Actually, we've issued 72-hour strike notice, And we've also issued our 48-hour notice in terms of our 1 day a week. It's clear. Our 1 day a week study session on Monday, we've issued our 72-hour notice. That starts on Tuesday, but let's be clear. Let's get this deal. Let's get this deal on this weekend. And there won't be a full-scale strike. We end the lockout. That's what we want.
I just got a note from a parent in the Tri-Cities, in the Coquitlam School District. And she says she supports teachers, but the BCTF is irritating her. And the reason is she learned 10 minutes ago that today will likely be the last day of her child's school year. 2 kids, 10 minutes before they leave for school, she has to tell them this is it. So what do you say to those parents? Why couldn't you show up at school on Monday and teach, to give parents an extra day?
What we want, and what I'm hopeful for, is that we can get this deal, and that we can get this deal on the weekend. And that's what we're going to be working for.
That's
and
fine,
and
but why
then
can't you give parents an extra day's notice? 10 minutes that they have to tell their kids in some cases, your school year's over.
we have requirements in terms of what we need to do to give our notice. And we've followed those requirements to give the notice. And again, I'm hopeful.
No one's disputing that you're following those requirements.
Yes.
But why would you not give parents more notice than this?
We've given our parents the notice that we need to give. And I have to remain hopeful that we can get this deal for our students, for our teachers, for our parents. And then we can be back to work. We need to see the faith and the will from government and the funding. And this can be averted. This can be averted by Monday or by Tuesday at the latest. And then we can all be back at our schools. That's what we want. For us, it's not about being on strike.
Jim, we don't know what kind of impact this job action may have for the marking of exams and the issuing of grades. What does this mean, though, for summer school? The government has said it'll suspend its lockout provisions. Will this full-on strike impact those that need to go to summer school?
Well, what we're hoping for is that this potential full impact strike will put pressure on government. Minister Fassbender recently said yesterday or the day before that this doesn't mean anything for him. You know, that's really unfortunate, because this pressure is pressure on government to come to the table in good faith and bring that necessary funding so we can get that deal.
But if
we have the will.
Is ongoing, will it impact summer school? The government says it's going to lift its lockout provisions. What is the BCTF going to do?
We seem to be concentrating on what may happen. Let's concentrate on, let's get this deal now, and we won't have to think about whether summer school happens in the summer or not.
But that's all
And
parents
our-
are thinking about it anyways.
And our concentration is right now to get that deal.
But it
And that's
doesn't
what we're
mean
going to
that
be
happens.
working hard for. And that's, you know, we have to remain hopeful. We have to remain optimistic. We need government to show faith, come with an open mind. Let's get that deal done. And we get the deal done, and that's what this is all about.
Is it safe to say, though, that the BCTF is not ready to make a decision on that right now? Like, what is the union mulling over?
Well, actually, we have summer coming in, 2 weeks? We've got 2 weeks. Actually, we have the next few days to avert a full-scale strike. And that's what we need to be thinking about. Let's get this deal done now.
You have said that you're optimistic, but are you really? You've instructed your members to take their personal items home as a precaution if they need them for the summer?
We've told our members that. We know that school districts have also been telling students that. They've sent home letters. They've been telling parents to do that. So let's concentrate on getting the deal. That's what we need to do. We've been at the bargaining table for 16 months, and we should all be hopeful here. We should all want this deal. That's what we want, and that's what we're going to work for. But we need a government to also show flexibility, to show the will, that they actually want a deal. We haven't seen that up to now. I'm hoping that's going to change. That's what we're going to be working hard on.
Your letter also says that the BCTF bargaining package has been revised. What revisions have been made?
Well, whatever revisions we have, that will be done at the bargaining table. I've been pretty clear about that in terms of specifics we deal with at the bargaining table. That will be conveyed to the employer, and we will await the response on that. And I'm hoping that both sides will be rolling up their sleeves in the next few days to get that deal.
Have you lowered
And
your
we
wage
should be
demands?
excited about that.
Have you lowered your wage demands?
We have a revised wage proposal. We have
Does that
some
include
revised
lowered wage
proposals. We know that part of this deal is wages. And we know to get a deal, we have to compromise. We said we're willing to compromise.
Is that a yes?
Absolutely, we've revised all of our proposals.
Other than what was released to the media last week about the 1% reduction, are teachers looking at something different than what we learned about last week?
We have revisions.
Can you tell
We'll
us
be
that?
talking, well, that's for the bargaining table.
But teachers will be looking at this during their study session on Monday, right?
Teachers will be looking at the revised package on Monday. And you know what my hope is, actually? That at those study sessions on Monday, our members will be looking at a settlement deal and see if it works for them. That's what I'm hoping that the study session will be all about on Monday.
When will the BCTF let us know what these revisions are?
Well, I think that's for the bargaining table. And if there's uptake and that government actually has some will and has flexibility, we'll deal with that at the bargaining table.
Jim, there's been some suggestion that one of the ways the government could come and put more money into this is through the money they're saving through all this strike action. So what's your sense about them coming back to offer you a higher wage settlement with your own money?
We have a number of important proposals at the table. Class size, class composition, minimum levels for specialist teachers, as well as a fair wage proposal. And we know that to get a deal, it takes funding. It's unfortunate that we've had to come to this point in terms of rotating strikes and possible full-scale strike, which we know we give up our wages for. But we want a deal. We need government to come to the table with more funding.
Can you tell us a bit more what's going to be happening on Monday? Can parents be able to bring their kids to school? Teachers won't be there, but the schools will be open.
Well, those are decisions that the school district will make in terms of whether schools are open or not.
What's going to be the process for determining what actually happened the last few days of school? Like what happens with final projects or classroom assignments?
Well, I think we have to remember also that leading up to this, we've been partially locked out. And government's partial lockout actually, and I've used these terms before, it's created a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, have actually prevented teachers not only from working with students, but also from doing some of their normal work. So the government's lockout has already prevented some of those things to happen that you're asking about because of their lockout. And we also have to remember government's lockout in the last 3 days of June and longer. But I'm not going to think about longer because right now we need to concentrate on getting the deal. That's what we want. We want a deal now.
I'm hearing from a number of teachers who say they're hurting financially and this is only going to get worse. What is your message to them?
Of course, when we lose pay, and like I said, the decision to go on any action wasn't a decision that we took lightly. And for us, it's critical that we get this fair deal for teachers now, which most importantly also includes better supports for our students. If we can get this deal now, it's going to be good for teachers, for students, for parents, for all of us. We'll have that certainty when we go back to work through the summer, and then back to work in September. And I understand that we're all feeling some of the financial hardship in terms of not being paid. And we also have to remember the punitive action that government created with their 10% deduction when we were actually in our classrooms working with our students.
What's the weekend bargaining schedule? Are you going to be bargaining 24/7?
We're going to be bargaining. I'm hoping that the employer is going to agree to it, and we'll be bargaining throughout the weekend, yes.
Have you not set times?
The times haven't been set, but we know that we've put the offer out to the employer to be bargaining through the weekend.
But you're meeting today and tomorrow?
We're in discussions today, and we'll probably be face-to-face tomorrow.
There are also teachers saying that they're okay with the 7.3 as long as you were to get classroom conditions issued settled. I've actually heard many teachers tell me they're okay with that number. Are you prepared to lower substantially your wage demand?
You know, we've looked at our proposals, and we think that we have proposals that will lay the foundation for a fair deal for teachers and includes better supports for our students. But it's critical. We need to see the improvements in class size, class composition, and minimum levels of specialist teachers as part of the deal for September. We've got a Supreme Court decision that says our provisions are restored. The government acted illegally twice. And a member reminded me that this illegal action, I've been saying they've been found to be illegal now twice, violating our constitutional rights. Well, it's actually been for the last 12 years. We've been living under illegal conditions. We should all be concerned about, because when we elect governments, we elect them to uphold the law, the charter, and not break it.
Jim, you mentioned that you don't want to discuss the wage revision, that you'll discuss it at the bargaining table, but you have told us in the past when you lowered the wage demand. Why not this time? Why won't you reveal what you're going to ask for in wage?
Well, you know, I know that the minister recently, rather than coming to the bargaining table and tabling a proposal on term and the bonus or the signing incentive at the time, did it in the media. And, you know, we heard from reliable sources that what should have actually been done is put it at the table and not in the media. When we've discussed some of the specific proposals in the media, it's after we've actually been at the bargaining table discussing them.
Oh, so
and
you've
we're
not presented this package yet to the employer, the revised wage package?
It hasn't been presented in a formal way to the employer. That's right. Yeah.
So
and
in
so
a formal way, but you've discussed it with the employer.
When we follow process. Process is very important for us in terms of collective bargaining. And when we have proposals, they will be tabled at the bargaining table. And I'm hoping that when we table these proposals, the government will be serious, they will have the will that we can get a deal. And we'll be dealing with it at the bargaining table. And what I'm hoping for is, you know, after this weekend, that we can come and actually announce that we have an agreement in committee. That's what we're hoping for.
Jim, why does the TF deserve more than what QP got? There's the same people in the same classroom. Why?
Well, so far, we've got some unique issues, and I've talked about the class size. And you can't underestimate the importance of class size. But so far, this government, at the table, we've just come off 2 years of legislated zeros. No other public sector employee group was legislated 2 years of zero. We're coming off 2 years of zero. And in effect, their current offer is another 2 years of zero. No other public sector employee group was offered 4 straight years of zero. So let's talk about this government showing some fairness and some flexibility in offering us a fair wage proposal. And when that comes, we'll be looking at it in a serious way as we look at all of our proposals.
As teachers are losing money by being on strike, is it expected that that's going to offset anything you get in the deal? Will that be just become null and moot?
I'm not understanding your question.
So the money that teachers are losing right now by striking, the signing bonus apparently may sort of, it won't even match up eventually, so.
Well, when in collective bargaining, and this applies to any sector, whether it's public sector, private sector, and when an employee group has to go on strike and they lose wages, and historically it shows that once you come to an agreement, the agreement makes up for, over time, the loss of wages.
And you expect that to be the case?
Well, absolutely. Part of this is a fair wage increase for our members.
In 2005, teachers had to concede that they weren't able to get what they were asking for. It was, striking for 2 weeks, that teachers were out and they lost considerably. Could the government not just wait you out?
Well, we've been at the bargaining table now for 16 months, and I've been pretty clear that we haven't seen a will from the employer that represents government to come to a settlement. And we know what happened in the last round of bargaining, and this came through a Supreme Court decision where this government was found to be bargaining in bad faith with us, that they had no intention in coming to a deal. What does that show about a government? We're hoping that that's not the case right now. It probably has been the case in the last 16 months, but we now need to see some will. Like, why do they want the system shut down when the Premier of the province has been talking about stability? And you have the Minister of Education say that this overwhelming strike vote from our members for a fair deal for teachers and better supports for our students doesn't make a difference for him? What will make a difference?
And write report cards for senior students?
Sorry?
Will teachers mark exams and write report cards for senior students?
We're dealing with some of those issues at the Labor Relations Board.
Do we know when that could be decided or figured out?
Yes, very soon.
Like today soon?
Today, yes.
The revised proposal that teachers will be looking at during the study session on Monday,
Yes.
are you waiting for teachers to look at this first before you formally present this at the bargaining table? Like, why not present this today or tomorrow? Why the wait here as the clock keeps ticking?
Well, it will be tabled at the bargaining table. We'll be discussing that with our local presidents today, what the decision that our executive made last night. And like I said, let's get the deal. Let's all be hopeful that the deal can happen.
So you might present this tomorrow before teachers look at it on Monday?
We're going to be dealing with this at the bargaining table. Yes, we'll be talking to our local presidents today. This is the decision that our executive committee made in terms of bargaining. And like I said, bargaining is about compromise. It's about moving forward and not backwards. Our members have given us the responsibility to get a deal for them. And that's what we're going to do, get that fair deal. Thank you.
How
one
many
more?
times have you
All
been
right.
the chief negotiator now? The last how many bargaining sessions?
I was the chief negotiator in just the previous session, and now, so this would have been the second time.
But you've been on the bargaining team since '94?
I've been on various bargaining teams since the very first round of provincial bargaining, and then I was on our local bargaining teams when we had local bargaining between '88 and '92.
So how would you rate this bargaining session compared to previous bargaining sessions in terms of the level of respect between the two sides and in terms of the level of movement between the two sides?
Well, there was probably more movement happening before June, before government, interfered, fired the board of directors from BCPC, fired their chief negotiator and CEO, and hired a new chief negotiator. But even previous to that, the one issue that was lacking, even though there was some progress, was on funding, where we know for any deal to happen in any sector, and it happened in 2006, that the employer, and in this case, the employer's representative representing government, has to bring funding to the table to make a deal happen. In 2006, they wanted a deal, and you could see that especially in that last week of June, when the deal came together, and it happened. And now what we know from the Supreme Court case in 2011, they had no desire to come to a deal. And inside sources actually say that when we actually did get that deal, even though part of the deal was legislated, like 2 years was legislated, the zeros were legislated, despite what you heard from government publicly, they were not happy that we actually got a deal because they wanted to legislate concessions on us. And so now we go into this round knowing what actually happened in the last round because of what came out in the Supreme Court, which government wants to keep hiding in terms of, we still haven't released our closing arguments to our members because that's part of the appeal going on right now. So we know what's happened previously, that it was in bad faith. We know that governments always build themselves out over the years by legislating rather than actually coming to the table to get a deal. And so despite all that, I have to remain hopeful that we can get this done, and we want this done now. And in terms of respect, in terms of the people at the table, there's always been a respect. Does it get heated sometimes? Sure. Do you take it personally? You can't take things personally at the bargaining table. And so there's always been a form of respect for the people who are there and the back and forth. But what we haven't seen, and I guess this goes back to what happened in the last round, is we haven't seen the will that they want to negotiate a fair deal. And I'm hoping that that they would rather get a deal with us than continue the fight. The Premier of the province with the truckers' strike, and I've alluded to that before, actually brought additional funding to the table to get a deal. And I think the comments she made that it's always better to get a deal than fight. So I'm hoping she transfers that to our bargaining table, and let's get this done so we can avert a full-scale strike. Okay? Thank you.